Hey, I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and we're now back with episode number 2, speaking with Ryan, an individual who had some challenges with the criminal justice system from the time he was a teenager and resulted in him serving a few years inside of the California Department of Corrections, but with some challenges with regard to having a lot of supervision hanging over him. And he's been out for 5 years, but in the first episode, which you can get on the show notes link below to the first episode, if you learn a little bit more about Ryan. Today, we're going to be talking about, well, how does somebody transition into a successful career after prison and after having a criminal background? And so he had some specific questions that we're going to go over. So Ryan, I just want to thank you for being a part of our program again. You know that we're using this to teach and inspire guys in prison, right?
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part of it. And as I told you before, there's nothing you can't ask me, but I want to continue our discussion from the previous episode where you had defined success for you as wanting to make, well, what was the number that you used that you wanted to earn in real estate?
20 million.
20 million. And I want to ask you a couple of questions on that first, before we get to the point of the licensing regulations. Do you know anybody in real estate that's making 20 million a year?
5 people. Not a year. No, not a year, but have made 20 million in real estate.
5 people. And in what capacity did they make the 20 million?
Over amount of years, or just
what did they do? Like, there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate. You can be a real estate developer. You can be a real estate, own a brokerage company. You can own real estate and have tenants. You can flip properties. You can sell properties.
Yeah,
what are the 5 people that you know? How did they make significant amounts of money in real estate?
The first one that I'll bring up is simply becoming an investor, using the properties, and like you said, becoming a landlord and renting them out, and using every penny that they made profit to buy more and more property that was low on the market, that rose over time to build their own equity in everything. And he started out with $50,000, and now he has a net worth of 35 million.
And what is your relationship with this person?
We are somewhat close. We've had a little hiccup because of a financial thing that he got led down the wrong path on, and he didn't like that. You know, I was trying to warn him ahead of time. He was a little cocky for his own self, and he bit the bullet on it.
What kind of real estate transactions does he do?
Large multi-complex apartment areas, or single family homes, things like that. He'll buy certain
Those are big differences. Which is it? Is it both? Does he primarily focus on multifamily, or does he do single family homes?
Well, he does multi-unit apartments, but then he does both single family homes as well.
What level of knowledge do you have with regard to the economics of those two different, because they're very different types of businesses? What do you know about the economics of those two different types of businesses?
I don't know the economics on the apartment side of it. I know more about the housing, the single family home part of it, because I've never really had interest in the apartment, side of it, but that's just what I know he does as well.
Okay. So when he does real estate, does he make his money by buying and selling for other people or for his own account?
I think both, because I know he'll buy, and he has a partner that he does it with, who's also his lawyer as well. But they work together, and I know a lot of it is for his own, like, it's his own money that he's making money off of. But I know there's someone in the background. Not really sure their details on what they do, but
the reason I'm asking you these questions is because if you want to reach a level of success like that, it's really important that you understand the number one thing you've got to know how to do. And I'm curious what thoughts you have on that front. What does it take to not make 20 million, not make 10 million, even to just make 500,000. What do you think? What is the skill that you need to have to be able to make even 500,000 a year?
It's not just one skill. You have to have a lot. You have to have the vision to see it all the way through until you reach your goal, and you have to have the motivation and the motor to get there, period. Like, there's not just one way to get there. There's a lot of work involved.
But is there one skill that you're going to use all the way through that you can think of that you've got to be able to do?
Build the demand.
Well, here's the thing. I really think what you got to do, Ryan, is you got to learn how to sell yourself. That's the number one thing you've got to learn how to do. You got to learn how to define success and then back it up. Meaning, what is the strategy that I'm going to get there? And you got to be able to say it. So I've got to be able to show a documented path that I am an expert in my area in order to make that, because you're talking about the highest level of performance, right?
Right.
The highest level of performance. If I want to make any kind of money, 200 grand a year, you could start from this premise of saying, well, how many people out of 100 make, let's call it 250. Do you have an idea of how many people that is that just make $250,000 a year?
I know it's in a very small percentile.
Okay, that's great. Yes, I would say it's definitely in the top 5% to make $250,000. That means out of 100, how many don't make $250,000?
95 of them aren't making it.
That's right. 95 of them would like to make it, but they don't know how to sell themselves. That's the first thing. Do you know why that's such an important skill?
Well, because that's the only way you're going to get through.
Well, you've got to sell yourself at a lot of different levels. You've got to, number one, if you're like you or me, somebody who's gone through the criminal justice system, the first thing you have to do is decide, do I want to be on the agent brokerage side of business? Meaning I have to have a license by the Department of Real Estate, the DRE, and I have to know everything that it's going to take to get my license with the DRE. It doesn't mean going and taking the exam and passing the exam. That's just one hurdle.
Right.
The next hurdle is, how do you define who you are, and why should I trust that you are a person of moral character to be in the real estate business? Could you answer that question right now?
I haven't given it much thought. I was going to ask you about that as well.
Great. You can ask me. How do I do it?
Exactly.
I'm very happy to tell you how I do it, because the first thing that I do is invest in myself. And it didn't start today. It started before I was sentenced to 45 years. As I wrote all these statements out in many books. I don't have any right here around me.
I've seen your books.
Yeah, I've written a lot of books. And in those books, you see, I started to sow this seed to sell myself, 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, because I went into prison in 1987. What year were you born?
88.
So you were just a baby when I started in the system, right? Literally just a baby. I was in 1987. But what happened, and I'll give you an analogy. I've used this analogy in teaching, so some of the viewers have heard me talk about it before, but I'm going to ask you, because you've never heard it, or at least you've never heard me say it. When is the best time of year to plant an oak tree?
I have no idea.
Okay, just when's the best time to plant an oak tree? Do you have any idea of that?
Spring.
Good guess. But I'm going to tell you the answer that I got. It's 20 years ago. That's the best time to plant oak, 20 years ago.
Right.
The second best time is today. Okay? Meaning it's never too late to start sowing seeds for a better future. But if you want to grow an oak tree, what are the steps that you have to take? Walk me through some of these steps. The first step.
For a literal oak tree?
Yeah, literal oak tree. And you're going to see how this relates to real estate.
before you even get the seed, you have to lay the soil, which is going to be the foundation for the seed to even sprout in.
Okay, so you got to put the seed in soil. What else do you have to do?
Then you have to maintain that seed to let it germinate and sprout.
And do you have to feed that seed with anything?
Absolutely. You have to keep feeding that tree in order for it to grow and become into what it is.
What do you feed it with?
What's that?
What do you feed it with?
Water and nutrients.
What are the nutrients generally made of?
Vitamins.
What is the name of the more popular nutrient?
You
ever hear of fertilizer?
Yeah. But,
what is fertilizer? Let's just talk about, what do you think fertilizer is made of?
Oh, I know what it's made of. A lot of shit.
Oh, great answer. Okay, so let's talk about that. So that means that the seed, in order for it to become an oak tree, it's got to grow through what?
A lot of shit.
Okay, so if you want to do anything successful, including selling yourself, you have to grow through what?
A lot of shit.
And you've got to be willing to do that, right? So,
absolutely.
So that's the key point here. If you know that you've got to sell yourself, you've got to say, I am willing to grow through a lot of shit, because a lot of people are going to reject who I am. People will reject who I am because I was in prison for 26 years. But because I've grown through all that shit, I can very easily overcome those objections. And you got to be able to do that right away. But the way I'll do it, I wish I did have the books here, but it's all right. The way I'll do it is an example. I'll say, you could ask me a question. Why are you worthy of having the moral and ethical turpitude, or moral? How can you pass this moral fitness test?
Yes.
Before we give you a license? I'll say, I'm going to tell you why. I'm a person who made a lot of really bad decisions when I was a young man. And those bad decisions resulted in me breaking the law. And as a result of me breaking the law and then making more bad decisions when I was tried, I was sentenced to 45 years in prison. But here's the real secret sauce here, is while I was in prison, I got inspired by reading about philosophy and learning how to change my life. And when I learned how to change my life, I learned to stop being a victim and complaining about what happened to me and start thinking about, how do I become more useful to society? And what can I do? And it was by asking that question, you see, that resulted in me pursuing this very deliberate path that would help me reconcile with other citizens. And because I could do that, I could then think, well, it's not important what I want, it's important what the other people want. And they will want me, so what would they want? That led me to focus on education. That led me to focus on contributing to society. And that led me focus on building a strong support network. And because I had that real clarity of thought, I could start building this record that would help me prove worthy of what I wanted to become. That's why I am uniquely qualified to help people who are trying to solve their own problems, such as find the perfect piece of real estate. Because you see, I have this depth and breadth of experience of facing a problem, which is, how do I stay motivated and disciplined even while I'm going through 26 years in prison? And I learned the skill set on how to do that. That has allowed me to be able to help other people solve their problems. And you can see a long history of how I have done that. I'm not just somebody who talks about it. I'm somebody who's done it for 9,500 days while I was going through prison. And now I'm in society and I'm doing it out here. And so what I'm asking is not necessarily for a handout,
right,
but to judge me for the way I responded to the bad decisions I made as a young man.
And
so that I can, right? And so if you do that, now when I communicate that way, there still may be, out of 10 people, there may be 5 that say, no way, I don't want to work with you. But that's okay, because I will find 5 that will.
And that's why I wanted to hear your answer on that, because I really didn't know. I didn't know if there was a right or wrong way to answer that question. And I'm glad that I heard you say that, because as you were saying that, that was something that I was going to actually bring up. Obviously, I don't have 26 years in prison, but overcoming everything, self-help books, everything like that, all the way through to come out on the other side of it, a different, complete person is, like you said, they're either gonna reject me for it or not, but it's basically the same thing that you said, that I just didn't know if there was like a trick question
No,
to
no,
it.
no. There's no trick question. But what you have to be thinking about, Ryan, and this is hard, is you have to stop thinking about life from your perspective. You got to start thinking about life from the perspective of the people you are trying to that have influence over you.
Okay.
So that's a hard thing to do a lot of times, because we see ourselves in a certain way, but the world sees us differently. The
Right.
world, first of all, sees us by our criminal record. The second thing they see us from is, how are we presenting ourselves? And you should ask that question. So if you walk into a financial institution or something along those lines, what do you see? How do the people look?
Always business professional.
Okay. What else? What, like, kind of paint a picture for me of somebody that you look at this person and that guy looks like a money guy.
They're
What does that guy
always
look like?
A lot of them are very chipper, but you can also tell they're real wiry.
What does that mean?
Like, they've got a lot going on at one time.
Okay. All right. So they may have a lot of going on at one time. I'm going to tell you some things that I think you've got to be thinking about, because you got to sell yourself to these people. And that's going to influence the way you look, the way you talk, the energy you bring to the conversation. You've got to get these people to believe in you. And if you want them to believe in you, you've got to be thinking, okay, how am I going to get that message out? And how long is it going to take me to get that message out? How fluid am I? How confident am I? Can I respond to every question very cleanly? And is it going to be in harmony with what I say is important? That's a challenge. And you started off by saying it right, Ryan, when you said it's a long process, because you've got to be thinking all the way through. And sometimes that process can be 3 years, 5 years before I'm ready for prime time. But you're a very young man. You're only 32 years old. The challenge is going to be, okay, how do I get through all the struggles that I have to get through and come out on the other side with my dignity intact and with opportunities to reinvent myself? Because I think you're right, as we covered in the first episode, and the link's down below if anybody didn't see the first episode. There's a lot of people plotting, hoping to bring you back in prison.
Oh, I know. And the one thing that really hit home with me, sitting down with one of the lifers in there, he said, when you go out there, I don't want you to go back to what you were doing. Listen, and listen good. He said, the best revenge is self-success. Go out there and get revenge by doing absolutely nothing but succeeding in life. You have an opportunity to be back out there. Take advantage of it. Don't squander it, because you will be in here with us.
And there's a lot of people inside prisons that wish they had that opportunity. And so I want to give this to those people as well, is that right now is the time to start sowing seeds so that you can persuade either a parole board, if it's not the parole board, if it's the governor that can commute your sentence, if it's your case manager that can move you to a lower security prison where you have less volatility. All of these are examples of how we have to sell ourselves. I've always had to sell myself. I still have to sell myself. And I know we started off here talking about real estate, but when I transitioned into asking you, what is the real skill that you've got to have? It's going to start with the ability to sell yourself. Because if you do that, Ryan, what'll happen is you will notice there are a lot of ways to become successful in real estate or in any other business. I don't have to, if it's real estate that I'm after, and I love real estate for a lot of reasons, primarily it's called cash flow.
Yeah.
But if I like real estate, I got to think, how do I get cash flow? I get cash flow by being able to put deals together. And if I put deals together, that means that I have to figure out ways to raise capital. And I got to figure out, if I raise capital, how do I get a return on investment for the people who've put up the money? What value am I going to bring? What's going to be my model of getting there? If you can put that into a package and sell it, and then talk about why you are uniquely qualified to do that, well, then your felony background doesn't necessarily become a weakness. It may, in fact, become a strength. Okay? But
that's one of the reasons I actually reached out as well. It's because if I wouldn't have reached out, I would have never got the information I'm getting today.
I hope that you find it valuable information, but I can tell you what my thoughts are is that you've got to start working, instead of getting into the real estate business of selling real estate. I don't frankly think that is the easiest way for somebody who's got a criminal background. A much easier way, or a much more, I shouldn't say even easier, because nothing is easy, but a much more likely path is to figure out, okay, what's going to be the business model? Figure that out first, and then be very specific on that, such as, am I going to buy single family homes? If the answer to that is yes, then say, okay, what's the sweet spot of those single family homes? Like, what should be my acquisition price? What should be my acquisition area? What is it going to take me to acquire the real estate? How am I going to manage the real estate? How am I going to build a case on why other people should give me money or invest money for me to acquire this real estate? And how am I going to make it worth their while? And in doing all of that, how will I achieve my goals? If you can answer, those are really tough questions.
Those are.
But you've got to think about them. But if you pursue that path, you're on the first step of figuring out, okay, this is going to be my strategy. My strategy is going to be one or the other. First is going to be get a license from the Department of Real Estate if I choose that path. If I choose this path over here, which is to raise capital and own real estate and manage real estate, that's a fundamentally different path. I'm going to go in one direction here. I'm going to go in one direction here. Either way, I have got to know how to sell myself, just in a different way. If I'm going to raise capital, and then say, who's going to give me capital? Who is most likely? Who is that audience? How am I going to reach that audience? How much capital do I need to raise? Right? You've got to have answers to that. What kind of return can I get on that investment? How is the person going to benefit?
Right.
All those are really important questions, and I can assure you they are not easy to answer.
Absolutely not.
But it's worth the effort. And so I would recommend that right now, we're at 23 minutes, we think this through. And you're going to see this video because it's going to be on YouTube. And so you'll be able to watch this and get all these questions. And then say, okay, the next step is going to say, okay, take those questions and write them out.
That's exactly what I was going to do and put together. I was going to scale it out, answer these questions. They're not going to be easy to answer, but I'm going to have to sit and think about them, and then I want to present them back to you.
And you got to allow yourself to be attacked by me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I get attacked, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay with me because that's part of the sale. Okay. And that's part of the way that you sell yourself. So we're going to do that. And we'll reconvene maybe next week or so because it'll take you a little time to do this. And then we'll record your answer. But what this is going to be doing is this is the way you train yourself to think differently. And if you train yourself to think differently, you start to question everything. What books am I reading? What am I doing with my day? How am I measuring progress? How can I persuade somebody to believe in me? And if you do that, Ryan, you're on the pathway to changing your life. Do you have children?
Not yet.
Okay, well, you have the pathway to change your life. And when you do have children, you can change their life as well. But all of this all begins with you selling yourself. And so let's see if you can answer those questions. And after you do, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions based on what you said. but I'm not going to be easy on you because you told me what you want to do. You want to make millions of dollars.
Yep.
Well, as somebody who's made millions of dollars, I can tell you what you got to do. And that's just do the work. You got to grow through the what?
Yep.
What do you got to grow through?
You got to go through all the shit.
You got to grow through the shit. So let's plant our seed, nurture the seed, and get ready to succeed. And if you are in jail or prison right now, I want you to listen to what Ryan had to say. Ryan, I'm going to ask you a question. You've been out for 5 years. What's the highest level of legitimate income you've made since the 5 years you've been home?
Only $30 an hour with back-breaking labor as a roofer in the construction union.
Okay. So on $30 an hour, what did you make in that year? 50 grand, 60 grand?
Yeah, a little less, yeah.
Okay, 40 grand, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Very important data point. So what Ryan wants to do is he wants to go from making a history of 40, 50 grand to making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're going to help him get there one step at a time. But I got to disconnect because I got a phone call right now. Hey, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I'm just getting off a video. Okay. And so this is Michael with Prison Professors, and I'm with Ryan. We'll continue this course later. Ryan, connect with me next week. Okay. I got to take this call.